All right, hey everyone, welcome back from spring break week to High and Inside. I'm Drew Allen, this is Kevin Bowen. Today we're going to talk about what the Hoosiers did over the spring break week down in Florida, as well as yesterday's 10-2 blowout against Ball State, and then obviously this weekend's home and away series with Evansville, which features the home opener on Sunday, weather permitting. So let's go right into it, Kevin. They played 8 games in 8 days in Florida, came away with a 5-3 record. Obviously, there were a couple of games where the batting wasn't there. I mean, obviously at the beginning, and then, but as they went forward, they started to get a lot more bats on a lot more balls, and the base running was there, and really scored a lot of runs. Tell us what stood out to you specifically.
I kind of broke up the trip kind of into 2 4-game segments, and I think Coach Smith did the same thing. They started off Blake Monar, Brian Corte, Chad Martin with their 3 weekend starters. Those guys started off the trip, and the pitching was there. They pitched great really for those first 3 or 4 games. They had a 3-1 record. They beat Pittsburgh. Brian Corte, the freshman, threw a complete game against them, scattering 9 hits against Pittsburgh, which is the only major team that they played, BCS conference team that they played. Then the next day they beat Jacksonville State in extra innings, who's a team that was picked to win the Ohio Valley Conference. So that was a quality win that I think. And then after that, I talked to Coach Smith after that Tuesday, after those first 4 games, and he was blunt and he was honest about it. He said his offense right now is struggling. He needed to find guys, that weren't those big boppers. Sometimes in the past, where guys like Josh Lyon, even Alex Dickerson, who ended up hitting some home runs later on in the weekend. Those really home runs aren't happening right now. So it's a team that he needs to find contact hitters. So he put guys like TC Nip in the lineup that could really get the ball out and play and make the defense earn it. And they did that in the final 4 games. Offense started coming together. I believe at the start of the trip they only had 6 runs in their first 26 innings. But the pitching kind of struggled in the back half. The offense did pick up the pace. They did lose 2 games back-to-back to Army and Bucknell, but then they closed it out with a win over Dartmouth, who was picked to finish the Ivy League. So like you mentioned, 5-3. I think maybe 6-2, 7-1 was kind of what they were hoping for. But you were at practice on Tuesday, and I think coming out of the trip, he was pleased with where his offense is. I think he's found who he wants to throw on the weekends. But offense right now, I think it's that whole lineup 1 through 9, getting guys that can make contact and make the defense make some plays.
Yeah, and Coach Smith said as much at practice on Tuesday. He said that he was very pleased with the progress that the offense showed down the stretch during the stretch of Florida games. Obviously, you're seeing Dickerson hit his stride, and we all knew it was probably only a matter of time before he did. I mean, he had a 2 home run game in that 10-7 win against Dartmouth, 3 homers total, which got him Big Ten Player of the Week honors for the first time this year. We can expect a few more of those, I'm sure.
It's 4th of his career.
Yeah, 4th of his career. So another thing that Tracy said at practice on Tuesday was that he's thinking that the guys he's got out there now, at least those who start, obviously he'll make substitutions as games warrant.
Right, exactly.
But he's thinking the guys that he's got in each lineup, both weekend and midweek, both out in the field and in the rotation, is pretty much what he's going to stick with for the rest of the year.
And we saw that on Wednesday, the outfield of Justin Curitin, TC Nip, Alex Dickerson. Curitin and Nip give you some speed, give you some contact, and then it sounds like Wes Wilson could be kind of settling into that catcher spot. He's that right-handed bat that Coach Smith has talked about in the past that definitely needs in the lineup because he's got a lot of lefties in there, so he needs a right-hander similar to Michael Early last year, and Wilson is giving the Hoosiers that. And then the DH, I think we will see Josh Lyon, Dylan Dooney, kind of seeing, whether it's a lefty or righty on the mound, which guy is going to be in that lineup. But like you mentioned, the Hoosiers beat the Cardinals on Wednesday, 10-2, 16 hit output, and really it kind of took a while for the offense to get going. They got a one run in the first inning, the 5th inning. Curitin and DeMuth, I believe, scored on via balk and via wild pitch. So the Cardinals kind of gave IU 2 runs, but in the 8th inning, all 9 Hoosiers came to the plate. They batted around 5 runs, 5 hits, opened the floodgates, and by then Drew Leininger was out of the game, and he pitched a gem for him. 7 innings of 3-hit ball, and I think that's something that we could see going forward. Leininger being this midweek guy, 11 of his 21 outs are via the ground ball, so he did a great job keeping the ball low in the zone. And I talked to Coach Smith after the game, and he kind of joked around about how his wife was saying in the car ride home, you know, if you can have a pitcher that pitched on Friday nights last year in the Big Ten to be your midweek guy, that means your program is growing.
That says something.
That's huge. And I think, you know, definitely the weekend guys of Corti, Martin, and Monar aren't penciled in for the rest of the year, but I think for Evansville this week and probably even for Michigan to open up the Big Ten season, those are the three guys that the Hoosiers will put out there. But Leininger is just a great weapon to have midweek, and I think right now Coach Smith has got to be pleased. 3-0 in midweek games so far to start the season is a solid record.
Oh yeah, and I mean, anytime you can get that extra work in during the midweek,
right,
that's going to be really beneficial towards your heading into the Big Ten schedule here coming up in a couple weeks. And speaking of which, they are going to get some extra work next week. They just today they added a midweek game next week on Wednesday against NAIA, Shawnee State, coached by Ted Tom, I believe. Is the who was a volunteer coach under Smith, probably had something to do with the addition to the schedule. But I think that'll be nice for the Hoosiers to get a little bit more work in before they dive in and play Michigan next week.
There's no midweek game scheduled for next week, which really from here out now the rest of the season there's at least 1 or 2 midweek games the whole time. So yeah, I think it's definitely good for the Hoosiers. I expect one of those young freshman arms to be thrown probably in that game, and yeah, give them some nice work going into Michigan. So for Drew Allen, I'm Kevin Bowen. You've watched High and Inside for updates on the Evansville game this weekend, and remember Sembauer Field 1 o'clock, the home opener, weather pending obviously as we see today outside. But yeah, follow us on Twitter, IDS_baseball, and hope you guys have a great spring break and stay with Hoosiers.